everyone. We are going to start our next chapter, and this is all about personal financial literacy. So basically, we're going to talk about different aspects to help you be able to manage your money better. So the first lesson that we're going to look at is something called a checking account. There's tons of vocab, so we're going to be looking at a bunch of different vocabulary terms here. And the first one is, what is a checking account? And a checking account is basically an account that you can get at the bank, and you can deposit money in there. Okay, you can also take money out of there. You can use it to pay for things like sodas at the store, bills if you are an adult and have to pay for like a house payment or a water bill and stuff like that. So basically a checking account is just an account you get at a bank that you can deposit money and you can take money out of it. Okay, now let's talk about what is a deposit. Now a deposit is when you add money to an account. And you can deposit money into something like a checking account as well as something like a savings account. So basically anytime you go to the bank and you say, hey, here's this much money, would like you add it to my account, you would be depositing money into that account. So you would be adding that to the value that you have in there. And the next term we have is a withdrawal. Now a withdrawal is when money is taken away from your account. So, for example, let's say I walk into H-E-B tonight and I need to buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. When I pay with my debit card, that is a withdrawal. That money is going to be taken from my account. Let's say I stop at the bank on my way home tonight to get $10 cash so I can take my kids to an arcade tonight. Okay? That $10 is a withdrawal. They are taking that money out of my account. Okay? All right, now let's talk about something called a transaction. Now, a transaction is when money is being moved around, okay, in your account, or money's being given to you. So anytime you deposit money, anytime you withdraw money, those would all be considered a transaction. Now, that transaction can be you going to an ATM and getting money out, you using a debit card, you writing a personal check for things. Anytime that there's a movement of that money, we would consider that to be a transaction. Okay? All right, the next one is a transfer. Now a transfer, transfer is just a type of transaction that occurs when money is moved between accounts. For example, let's say I have a checking account and I have a savings account. Now, my checking account would be the account I would use to pay, like, my bills, go to the grocery store, that kind of stuff, pay for gas in my car, different things like that. Now, my savings account is going to be what I'm going to use when I want to save money. Okay, so let's say I set up a savings account for my 2 kids' college. So every month I deposit blah, blah, blah money in there. Okay, I don't use that money to pay for my bills, to pay for gas or anything like that. I would save that money. So if I were to, let's say, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money in my account, I could transfer money from a savings account into a checking account. So a transfer is just when you take something from one account and you would move it to another account. You personally don't do that. You would ask the bank to do something like that. Okay? All right. The next one is something called a check register. A check register is just a written record of every transaction that has occurred in your account. So in other words, everything that's happened in your bank account would be done on a check registry. Now, back in the day, before we had all this awesome online banking, you would have to physically keep track of your own check registry. Otherwise, it would be hard for you to determine how much money you have in your account. Most banks you can online bank with. They do this check registry for you. So it will show you when you've deposited money that it's adding it, when you're withdrawing money that it's taking it away. So it will keep track of this all the transactions for you. You don't personally have to do that. Now you can to double check to make sure the bank didn't make errors, and sometimes that's a wise thing. However, most banks do that for you now. Okay? Now, when you look at an online banking, okay, and you look at your account, what they have done is they are balancing that check registry as you spend money or as you deposit money. So when we talk about balancing a check registry, it's basically like, okay, if I added $50 to my account, they would add that to my money that I have in there. If I were to spend $30, so a withdrawal of $30, they would take that away. Okay, if I transfer money from my savings account into my checking account, when I balance that check registry, it's going to have a running total of all of those transactions. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and look at what a check registry actually would look like. So this is just one example. Not all check registries look exactly the same, but this is just an example of one. So if you want to look, I'm on page 882 of the math book. You'll find this exact same example there if you want to follow along with me. So this person, we're looking at transactions for the month of November, okay? And right here we have a bunch of different columns. So the first column you see is the check number, the date, the transaction description, whether it was a withdrawal, a deposit, and what we're going to do is we're going to keep a running balance of that account. So the first thing that this person does is they are going to withdraw $95.38. Okay, so they are going to withdraw that $95.38, and if you look right here, it tells me that their starting balance on their account is $117.82. So I'm going to take the $117.82, and from that, since it's a withdrawal, I'm going to take away $95.38. That would tell me that now I have a balance of $22.44 in my bank account. Okay, so I went to H-E-B, spent $95 on groceries. They took that money out of my account. Then I'm like, oh no, I need to have a little more money in my account. So I go into the bank on the 11th, and I'm going to transfer some money from my savings. So they're going to take the $25 out of my savings account, and they're going to deposit that money into my checking account. And when you deposit it, that means they're going to add that value to. So I'm going to take $25 and $22.40, and I'm adding them together. So now my balance in my account is $47.44. Then on the 15th, I get paid. So they deposit $800 into my bank account. So since it's a deposit, I'm going to add it to my balance. So now currently I have $847.44. All right, on the 15th, I also have to pay my utility bills. So because I'm withdrawing that money, I'm not adding to it. I'm going to subtract that. So I'm going to take the $847.44, and from that I'm going to subtract $75.56. So now my balance is going to be $771.88. My next transaction on the 24th is rent. So again, because it's a withdrawal, I'm going to subtract that value. So I'm going to take $771.88 minus $675. Now that tells me in my bank account I have $96.88. Then on the 30th, I get paid. So my paycheck goes into my bank account. So that money gets deposited into my account. So because it's a deposit, I'm going to add it. So at the end of this month, on the 30th, I currently have $896.88 in my bank account. That is an example of a check registry. Okay, now there's one other thing about checking accounts that I want to talk about, and that's where do you pick to do your checking account at? Because each bank offers different options. So in this example, I have Washington Bank and I have First State Bank. Now, depending on what I'm going to do is going to depend on which bank I would choose to bank at. So when I look at Washington Bank, they offer checking accounts, they offer debit cards, they charge me a $20 monthly fee. Okay, so they are going to charge me $20 a month to use their bank. However, I have unlimited transactions. So I can use my debit card as many times, I can deposit stuff as many times as I want, I can transfer things as much as I want, unlimited within that month. However, they will charge me a $20 fee. They also offer free online banking. Okay? Now, First Savings Bank offers free checking and debit cards. So they don't charge me for an account there. However, if you notice, see how there's a little star there? This little star tells me that you get up to 15 transactions. So I can have 15 debit card purchases, basically 15 withdrawals, 15 deposits, 15 transfers. If I go over that, they're going to charge me a transaction fee of 50 cents for each transaction. Okay? First Savings Bank also charges me a $5 monthly fee for online banking. Okay? Now, depending on what your needs are, would depend on what bank you would want to select. So let's look at Lee. Okay? So Lee's comparing the features and the cost of the checking account and a debit card offered by Washington Bank and First Savings Bank. If Lee is going to use online banking, okay, so he needs online banking. Here it's free. Here it's going to cost me $5. And he averages 25 transactions a month. So debit card purchases, basically withdrawals, deposits, transfers. Which bank would be best for him to use? So let's compare them. So if Lee were to go to Washington Bank, would you agree that he's just going to pay $20? They charge you $20 for unlimited transactions, and he gets the free online banking. So Washington Bank is going to cost him $20. Okay? Now let's look at First Savings Bank. Now when I look at First Savings Bank, they offer free banking. So I don't have to pay a monthly fee. However, I am going to have to pay a $5 fee for online banking. And since Lee uses that, I'm going to have to pay that $5. Okay? He says he has 25 transactions. So at First Savings Bank, I get my first 15 for free. So if I use 25, 15 of them are free, that means I'm paying for 10 transactions. Now, each additional transaction costs me 50 cents. So I'm going to calculate how much I'm going to charge, or how much I'm going to pay. So I'm going to pay $5 additionally for my transactions. So if he pays $5 for online banking, $5 for the extra transactions fees, that means at First Savings Bank, Lee is going to spend $10. So of the two banks, I would say that Lee should probably pick First Savings Bank. Okay? So that's how we can compare two banks and decide which one's best based off of Lee's needs. Okay? Now, if you have any questions about bank accounts, make sure talk to your parents about it. Talk to us in class. Come to class with questions. And don't forget, guys, do your whisk. Hope you have a great evening.